Hey folks, this is Tolly and welcome to More Game Dev. We're coming back for stream number 2 today. We're at a 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. stream. I will be honest, I am quite tired, but there's more to be done. I think part of it's because it's just been a lot of work off stream as well. Like off stream, there was some work done this morning with Drixie as well. So technically I've been going all day. But I don't know, I'm still feeling good. Tired, but I definitely want to keep working. So we're gonna jump on stream here and we're gonna just keep working through low thought tasks that don't require a lot of thinking. We're gonna try and focus on some low-hanging fruit stuff. I think that we had done this just at the end of the stream. Or more accurately, we had completed the alert icons not being blocking, and I think that's going to make this one here to have icons appearing during the cutscene much easier to do now that we have our head wrapped around that. I might try and tackle some code improvements for keeping track of cutscenes more easily, just more tooling to just generate assets for us faster. Try and reduce data entry as much as possible. And then the other big thing I think I want to work on during today's stream is getting the player abilities set up. We kind of have these like light, heavy, shove abilities that we've been using for a long time, but I'd like to try and build something that's more accurate to be like the final pieces for the tutorial at the very least, and for the demo. Beyond that, there's some design data creation for narrative cutscenes and just more bugs and polish. I'm sure we can find lots of things in here that hopefully should be relatively easy to pick up. Just don't want to have to do a lot of thinking this evening. A lot of data entry should be the way to go, I think. Alright, without any further ado, let's do Tiny Trials. And let's jump into the player abilities first. More so than bugs and polish. Where do we begin? Well, I think step one is let's take a look at the abilities we already have. So we have light, heavy, and shove here. It's under this simplified folder. Let's make a new folder for, I don't know, demo. These are going to be the demo abilities. These might be the final ones as well, but I just want to separate them from some of the other ones. Do I though? I guess simplified just needs to be renamed at some point to just be like the abilities. Sure. You know what? Actually, let's do it this way. Player abilities. And then we're going to move contextual move up into there. And the wisp move. We will move the sub effects. No, this is crazy. This doesn't matter. Just leave it all alone. Okay. No restructuring. Do not have the mental energy for that. Let's just take a look at how these get brought into the game. That is via the JSON file. We have an ability design data, and that comes in with a bunch of old ones that we're not using, and then shove, light attack, and heavy attack. Where's that data come from? That's from the spreadsheets that we have. So in here, abilities, yeah, we have these ones. So I think we want to come up with some new ones. We're going to just label these slash, bash, and shoot. And I'm going to assume that I'm going to name the ability prefabs to be ability slash bash and shoot. Okay. Then I'm going to download that TSV over here on this monitor. Just downloading TSV. And then that's just going to get saved over this one. Save that, replace. And then when we parse IT ability parser, that should regenerate this JSON with those extra entries. It did. One thing I forgot to do was set the types. So these were... Oh, well... These don't actually set the types. These set the... name? Interesting. I'm going to update this data directly. And shoot. Okay. Now, let's make abilities for each of those. So I think light attack is probably the simplest one here. This actually has a dash effect in it, so heavy is going to be the simplest one to reference. So let's make it a copy of heavy, and let's call this slash. And let's just get one up and running first, and then we'll go from there. So this will need to have an addressable ID. This prefab will be what I say, IT ability slash. Okay. We will rename this. Okay, that all seems good. Now, if I want that to be one of the abilities that show up in the previous screen, that should be this one here in Infinite Retries Dungeon Forest TO2. That should load into this one with some of the prop stuff we were showing off in the previous stream. This is all a lot of placeholder, very sketchy, but just trying to get some ideas in place. So if we come in here and we set this one to spawn all by default, it should auto-complete the room, and then we will get the dialogue letting us choose which ability we want. And this says slash bash and shoot, but in reality they're mapping to something else. So starting ability screen. This was actually giving us shove, light attack, and heavy attack. So let's do slash here instead of light. In fact, we'll just do slash on all of these because I'm not 100% sure. Oh no, they're named correctly. So if we choose slash, we should actually get the slash ability that we're creating now. And let's give this a shot. And the way I'll test this is just seeing whether or not if we choose slash and then switch to the previous room, did not work. In order to create a new ability, we also need to create its ability skill tree, otherwise it won't work. That's fair, I was going to need to do that soon anyways, so let's go do that now before we try testing any further. Let's go UI, front end, screens, skills. And then if we come into here and actually open it in this view, 2D mode, we should be able to see some default stuff here in this node loader. If we remove all of these and then choose to reload a template, this is a template loaded up here. So we can generate these from TSV. Where do these come from? I'm pretty sure skill, template, these ones are just TSV files. It opened the wrong folder, or the wrong one. So yeah, this is just a tab delineated entry. So we can just add things here if we wanted, and every spot where there's a 1 is where it's going to choose to place something. We can also manually create these as well. Well, let's see. What else can we do? Do we have one that is full? We do. This one here has every node associated. So if we load that up, just out of context. Ooh, it doesn't appear. Max capacity loadout. That's the one. So this is based off of our current UI, which I think is going to change in the long term, but I think this is the maximum amount of nodes that we can have on one skill, which is pretty reasonable. This is 5 here, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9 here, 9 times 5 at the very least is going to be... Wow, my brain. 45. And then that's another 5 is 50. That's another 5 is 55. That's another 6. So this is 61 nodes, it looks like. I don't think we'd ever want to max out at this, but this is more just like the limit of our creative like patterns that we can create. So we could modify these individually, but that's kind of going to be a bit of a hassle because each of these have like node indices for like which, you know, ones you can hit left, right on to go to. So it's probably going to be easier just to use the TSVs. Oh, I see. And this is the name we use to generate from. And this is a save template name. So, okay, so if we hit save template, whatever we have in here will get put into one of these template loadouts. Can we generate some of these other ones? We can, but a lot of these other ones are built for the old Era of Ember system where these were triangles instead of a kind of more of a grid, or a traditional kind of... The old Era of Ember system had a lot of diagonal kind of ideas because these things weren't square, they were diamonds, so they fit together better that way. Okay, and here's all the different abilities that we can access. So if we choose slash, we could save the ability data for slash here. Okay, I remember how a good chunk of this works. Let's bring up a TSV and let's see if we can modify and get some map data in here. Yes. Okay. I wish I had an easier way to edit this. Would this open in Visual Studio Code, I wonder? Let me just try dropping that in here. That's not bad, actually. I feel like this is easier to read with the breaks, at least for the tabs. And these are just missing. Okay. Interesting that it doesn't add more tabs when I actually tab through. I guess it's because I don't have any entries. If I was to add a 1 here, yeah, then it puts all the tabs in for me. Interesting. Okay, let's try editing it this way rather than having to download it from the Google spreadsheets every time. So if we just put 1 here and say 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here, what does that look like? I imagine it'll break because there isn't anything next to some of these. So if we come back in here and hit generate via TSV, it does not break. But I assume it has no adjacent? Yeah. So it has no nodes next to it, so it wouldn't be able to function. Or at least you wouldn't be able to navigate it. Okay. That's not too bad. So then, if I wanted to start here with a simple grid, I think what I want to try then is 1 here, 1 here, get rid of the front row, and then try something like this potentially. Delete this one. Delete this one. What would that look like? I kind of feel like it's a little far to the left. This is a pretty minor thing, but we could just move it over just by doing that. Let's lock this for now. Okay. What about one more time? Sure. Let's start there. Now, the first node here in the center of this spot here is going to be my starting node. So we're going to change this. Oh, it's already set to starting node by default. Good. Then this one here is going to be a unlock ability node, which is going to have the ID for the ability we want to unlock be Bash. Now this is showing the wrong iconography. There is a way for me to update nodes. Okay, I think that's working. It's a little confusing because the iconography is all the same, but that, I believe, is the icon we used in Era of Embers for unlocking an ability. So if we name this one Shoot, and then update nodes, that appears correctly. And let's say the first node that you can buy, which I think would make the most sense, is just a stat node for attack. Have it have a cost of 1. Give this a cost of 1, and this a cost of 1 as well. Attack of 1. Amount. What is that amount for? I don't quite remember. It's been a long time since I've built a skill tree from scratch. What does this get used for? Okay, it's stored inside of here. Amount is the increase by a stat. Or anything else that might need a parameter of an integer value. So let's say it's an increase of 1 strength. Then this one here, we will give this a HP bonus. We start with some pretty small numbers. I'm going to change this to be like 5 to begin with. Also a cost of 1. And then we get an actual decision. We can either go up or we can go down. Let's make up a defense bonus. Cost of 1, amount 1. And then let's make this last node here a unlockability node. And I want this unlockability node probably to unlock /V2 is my thinking. I don't know what the real name of this will be, but it'll be the next ability in the / kind of grouping. And then we can hit update nodes. Oh, did we not do these ones correctly? Stats, HP, cost 1. Okay. And then this one. Oh, starting node needs to be stat node. Did I get this one wrong? I did. I missed the fact this needed to be stat node. Okay. Then we can update these nodes. Ooh, interesting. We are missing an icon for HP. In fact, is that what this console complaint is about? Interesting. Let's try that again. Update nodes. So it's complaining that there was an invalid key exception. No merge mode is set. The multiple keys requested. So the keys is empty. So this is assuming that there's nothing. Okay, let's go dig in a little bit. So if we go look inside of the node template editor, and when we click that update nodes button, what is that doing? That is looping through the node holders and calling update data. And inside of update data, it is updating the screen components. And I'm going to assume one of those screen components is just updating the iconography. So in here, yeah, this is trying to update it based off of whatever the icon name is that's stored in there. All right, I'm going to put some breakpoints in. I'm going to see what data is coming in. Actually, I want to see where these get created. Who manages these? There must be some sort of editor. This is coming from here, from the list of node UIs. Interesting. Okay. And the node UIs have a node data holder, which is what we're modifying here. So when it asks for the icon name inside of the component here, that is this thing. And where does this get set? If it's a stat node, get icon name. Ah, which there was not an icon name for HP. Oh, because it's max health. Okay, I see the problem. That makes some sense. Just a confusing gotcha. Update. Perfect. Now, going down. I think we continue with stat nodes. Not entirely sure what I want to be balancing these stats around right now, so I just want to get some data in here that feels at least kind of correct. And once again, this is not HP, but max HP that we are modifying. And then finally, we will end here. Now, what are we trying to achieve? Let's go back and look at the unlock order that we built. So we said that slash would go to slash v2 and then go to bash and shoot as well. And I've put bash and shoot right at the beginning here so that you can unlock these very quickly. That means that we don't have a great finale here. And in fact, looking at this, what probably makes the most sense is instead of this little short bridge to be slash v2, but to instead make it so this one is slash v2, make this a unlockability node, and then this one probably just change to a stat node, and then give it like a highly sought after value of like attack for like 2 points. So if you're branching off here, you've got to go through a defense stat, but you get a big update to your strength value. It's not perfect, but I think this is probably a reasonable starting point for kind of seeing how this feels. So from here, we want to... Ooh, what do we want to do? So we want to have slash selected, and I think we want to save ability data. I don't think we got any errors. This is still from the previous one a moment ago. I don't think we need this tab open right now. I can recreate that scene tab if I need to later. Okay, so I think that should have saved it. We can take a look at the JSON to see what's going on with it. That's going to be... This is all Era of Embers stuff? No. JSON files here. Ability to design data. So if we look down here at slash, it now has a node template and a node data ID, which should be the information we need. We're going to take a look at this template one. This has all the different templates in it. At the very bottom, we should have added a new one, which is skill template small. That doesn't look right to me. What was the ID that this was using for its node template? 166 ending with 56. Okay. We can just search. Node grid layout 3. Interesting. I'm going to guess that's because I had this one selected. I'm a little scared. But if I... Let's save this template as slash simple. Sure, save that template. So that should show up here as slash simple. If we hit here and hit save data again, does that update that information in the ability design data? It sure did. Okay, so in order for you to hit save ability data, the template to load value must be the correct one and slash. And you also need to save each of these templates, which, yeah, okay, sure. Okay, so then if we are then... That's slash setup. If we were to do bash and... Even at a most basic level, let's just change this one. So you're ending at bash v2. We'd probably want to change them to be very different so that it feels like they're each unique. But for the time being, let's just come into here. Let's change the one that was bash to shoot, and the one that was shoot to slash. And then if we do a save ability data for this one, I would hope that that updated bash to use the exact same node template, but now has its own node design data. Okay. Now where is that node design data coming from? Ability node design data? In here. What's this populated with? A number of these. And so this is kind of laying out the entries for each node. So the template is the position of every one of these nodes, and the node data is the information in each of those nodes. And those are separate because we can reuse the same template, but have different data in that template. Okay. And we've just added these two entries. So far, these are the only two real entries. Here and there. Yeah. Everything else doesn't matter. I'm going to leave the other stuff for now, but there's a good chance that I'm going to want to delete everything other than slash bash and shoot to start with, just because it's going to make life easier to keep track of what's real and what's not, what's old and what's actual data that we want to keep. Okay. And then lastly, we could come into the shoot one, and we could change this one from shoot. Actually, I want to know what this one was. Was this one slash? Yes. So I think this becomes bash, and this becomes slash, and then everything's rotating. And then this one becomes shoot v2. Okay. And we should be able to save that into the shoot design data. And if we open up here, we should see shoot now has some information, again using the exact same template, but with different data. And that data ID matches the ID of the ability. So yeah, so this is just like the name of the ability is what's being put into the ability node data, and then the template is based off of whatever name we actually gave that template. Okay, I'm on board. I see it. It's been a bit. It has been a long time since I've touched this stuff. But that seemed reasonable and not too hard to edit. Would want to switch up the stats in each grid, obviously, and have different skills layouts. I think probably it's okay to repeat templates, but not right away. But this should work for testing purposes. So if we come back to scene, dungeon, forest, TO2, save this, we should be able to choose slash as our starting ability. And then if we were to debug end the run, we should be able to see its skill tree in the Goddess Realm. I do want to just come into another section here. And let's go and look for slash. Okay, and that is the ability that was chosen here. Cool. Let's skip this dialogue and then debug end the run. And let's go look at the skill tree and see if it was updated with the information we just set up. Right, we're gonna have to watch this cutscene. Very good. And we'll have to debug back here again. Probably should make a new save file so that we can actually like not have to deal with all the tutorial stuff. When testing these things, but then we have to start from boot. I still feel like there's more work to be done here. Okay. So none of them have descriptions unless it's stats, because the stats generate their descriptions based off the amount. Okay, and we can see all this stuff, but we can't buy anything yet. But the unlockability ones do not have any information inside of them. Also, I didn't give that one a cost. Okay, cool. So let's go update that data. Where'd Unity go? Here. And I think we can do this directly from the node screen. Should be somewhere. Oh, it's called skill screen, right? Skill. Yeah, we can. It looks kind of muddier because it's not under a real canvas, but otherwise we can modify things here. So I guess the next thing here is if we remove all nodes and then we say load shoot, does that work? Seems to. Good. So if we give this a description of unlock slash, and then this one should have a description of unlock bash, and then this one should have a description of unlock shoot v2, and we should be able to save that back out, and that should be fine. So then we'll remove all nodes, we'll go to bash, load that ability. All right, then first up we've got this one, unlock shoot, unlock slash unlock bash v2. Save that out. Slash loadability. And same thing again. I suppose we could try and generate this description based off the ability IDs, like ability name. So use the ability ID to look up that ability's name and then generate the description of unlock plus whatever the name of that ability is. Okay. And then one thing I'm also curious on is these are a bit hard to read or find, and clicking them here is okay, but you often click the UI and then you have to click up a level. Is there a way when we hit update nodes to actually rename everything based off of what type of node it is? That would be handy. Should be a relatively quick thing to do. Let's see, update, control find actually. Update nodes. Yes and no. So when we hit update nodes, we're updating all of the node data-driven parent components. Which is on here. And that should have all of the information we need. Double check, but no data. Yeah, it has all of the core information. So if that's the case, let's make a new one of these. Ooh, there was one there that looked like it could be the same. Hello, Drixie. Welcome to the stream. No, this is displaying something on a text object, which is similar to what we want, but not quite. So we're going to rename this to node debug name object name component. And then this thing shouldn't need any of this. It's just simply on refresh going to do this dot game object. Actually, yeah, I think it's just game object dot name is equal to, and then the name will need to be somewhat based off of the information in the node. So if we grab stored data, it has the cost, the amount, the debug display text, description. I guess description could be a fine starting point. Start there, and if we need something more detailed, we can kind of dig around and see if there's more that we want to do there. Description might be a little long in some cases. Yeah, I might want a custom name for these. Right, we actually need to update the prefab we're using, which is going to be this one. And we're going to give it that new component, node debug object name. And that should be fine. Come back into here. These should all have that now. They don't. So let's remove all and then load the ability slash. Oh, and it does it even just on load. Okay. Interesting problem. When we start, we're not starting on the starting node selected also. And we started on bash. So does our system not know to update the position of the cursor to be the starting node? would seem that way. Let's take a look at the skill screens. Wait, I think this is the wrong one. No, this is infinite retries. Node screen. Oh, I could see that being a smart idea, but this is fine. Yeah, so nothing in the menu component says what button to start with. I feel like in the past, I was making a somewhat silly decision to always make the index 0 node the starting node. But I don't want to be constrained to that, because it requires a bit of manipulation of the data, which I don't want to have to do. So we should be able to just find the starting node and start with that one as our base, but I don't know if we've ever done that before. The menu component system is something I wrote like 3-4 years ago, and for the most part it's all just worked perfectly fine. But when it, yeah, get first, how does this work? Yeah, that's fine. It doesn't really have the ability to find a specific button. It just starts with whatever's first. Populate navigation? That's up to each menu to decide how that works. Yeah, each menu gets to make that decision. I say that, but where does this actually get you? Oh, inside of here. Interesting. Okay, so menu graph is the type of menu that we're working with. I'm trying to see where some of this stuff is being used. Ah, update selection. Oh, interesting. Each screen has an update selection function, which allows us to update that screen's menu with just giving it a game object. And then from that game object, it tries to do... First checks to see if the selection is null that we have here, and then it just gets the first one in the menu. And if it's not, then if selection is valid, we just do select on it, on select null for the callback, select listener, and select text highlighter. Okay. So we could fix some of that to have it so the screen auto starts, but I think what I'd rather do is I'd like to make it so this get first doesn't just get the first button in the list, but actually has some way of figuring out the starting node. And nothing references menu graph. I'm going to assume then that, yeah, this is a menu graph then does node menu... No. Menu component? There's some magic going on here. I wrote some really smart stuff, quote unquote smart. Some stuff I like that I wrote some code that I really liked where it actually is doing a lot of just like automatic things and saving me a ton of time. But I don't remember all the automation that I was doing here for this. Because like this menu graph isn't used here anywhere, but it is an I menu type. And I think that might be plugging into here in the skill screen. It is a menu screen that has the data type of node. It takes a menu component with specific values. So then, yeah, I don't remember how this works, but I know that menu graph is being automatically grabbed by some other systems. Menu component. Right, so this has a menu component. So this is a data-driven menu component. And that data-driven menu component takes a menu component, which is a bunch of screen components of a specific generic. And it initializes it, clears it, and adds buttons to it. That's this thing. Okay. So this component, which is mostly empty, is just saying, hey, this is a menu that operates on this type of data. That's all that's saying. So the menu graph is separate from that system. We have a menu list and we have a menu graph. Ah, the menu component here that is mostly just setting up the data type is also doing a lot of the heavy lifting of finding the associated I menu on the same component. And then once it finds that menu, it populates its navigation, sets the on button callback, which will go back to our screens. It's figuring out how it's like encapsulating a lot of the menu logic. Right. Okay, cool. So this thing is what type of menu. The menu graph is like doing all the back-end logic of like how we populate navigation between these things, because a menu graph can go in many cardinal directions, whereas a menu list, which is the other type of menu that I created, which is this one, is also an I menu, but when it comes to populating navigation, it will usually only do up and down based off of the typing it's given. It's either given a style of horizontal or vertical. Right. And so the I menu stuff doesn't really care about the data side of it at all and has no information for it. So if we were to try and modify get first in here, this doesn't have any idea about the data because it's clearly just the behavior of how the buttons are going to navigate between each other. It has no comprehension of what button would be a starting button. Now that being said, these things do have nodes for a graph, so we can get a node and check if that node is unlocked. Which gets, there's some valid navigation stuff here. Okay, so it does need to access the node concept a little bit, because obviously it's gonna need to know some information. So what does an I node contain? Whether or not it's available, whether or not it's unlocked, and it's up, down, left and right, right and left. Information. So yeah, this thing has no idea about how to get the right first. And the first is going to just be the first one in the list of buttons, and that's going to be determined by which one's added first. So I suppose it's a little hacky, but if we make it so that starting node is the first one in the list, that would make it so it's the first selected object. Okay, so when we save out an ability, we save out that ability as... This is doing a bunch of logic. Let's open this up a little more so we can see. Save ability. I saw load. What about the word ability? Really? Save ability. Okay, here. So when we hit save, we save out the ability, save out to the ability node design data with the node UIs, given the node data, and we pass that node data's specifically just this information to the node data's inside of the node, it's passing it into the JSON file. Okay. So if we were to change it here, so first before we loop through here, or even if we did an insert to index 0 instead of add for anything that is of type starting, that would push that node to the front. Oh, but is there some weirdness here where the order might be affected by the template as well? Yeah, so we got to take a look at the load part of this, because there's a chance that the order that this loads in is affecting the order in which yeah, each of the transforms is loaded out the same way. So when we hit save ability data, how does it know which template we're using? That's not happening in here at all. It sets the template to be whatever the template design data template index is. Okay, so it's literally what I thought it was doing. So it doesn't really care which one you've last loaded. It actually cares about which one the index is at the moment that you hit save ability data. A little awkward, but fine. So if this one is starting node, right, and this is indices 3 with right and being 4, down being 6, and up being 0 for the indices, then if we look at the JSON data for this, these things have no idea what index they are. They simply just know what data they have. Yeah, so this is, I can't just modify the data because there's a stupid dependency that I wrote into this where the two lists basically have to be identical, which is not great, but it's fine. Yeah, because all of the templates, they just contain the XYZ like position, the index, and then the coordinates. So I guess a slightly safer thing to do with our ability to design data would be to actually give the node data the indice that it's supposed to be, and then we load everything up. We load up not just the template and the data and hope they match, but we actually do a bit of validation on that. What's kind of nice about that is if we ever change up a template, but it still has the same number of indices, it would still work depending on where we position it. Yeah. So I'm talking in circles a little bit, but the long and short of it is it's not easy for me to change what the first node is. Which is annoying. And there isn't really a clean, like, oh, I can just fix this and it'll just work. Yeah, no. I can make this work. When we hit load template, what happens? Load node template. Reads the data and then just loops through it and creates all the nodes. Okay. And then when I hit loadability, that sets up the node grid, which is just setting up an array. Then it loads the template, then it loads the data. And these node UIs are generated as part of the template loading. Probably what create node is doing. Yeah. Yeah, it's a complete dependency on one-to-one lists being identical. So let's say we fix that. Let's say we change it so instead it actually like saves out the indice to the actual data, and then when the data loads, instead of just like, you know, looping through the list of UIs and assuming each one's going to socket in correctly, it actually like checks to find a node UI with the correct value and like, or the correct indice, and like puts its data in the correct node. Does that even help me in some way? I don't think it does. I might have to recreate the data I just made, but I think the easier way is simply on save, specifically on the save of the node template. We should sort these. I don't even know if sorting is the right idea here. Just do it manually. Easier for my brain at this hour. We're just gonna loop through and find node UIs. If how do I get the data from my UI? Get node holder component. if the node holder component type, nope, node data, node type equals starting node, then we want to I is equal to, sorry, starting node, node index. Find the starting node index. We assume there's only one. It's a pretty heavy assumption, but might have to change that at some point. And then after that, we want to do save the node here. Remove at, well, I guess I could just do remove directly and just hand it the node. And then insert 0 index node. And I think this will reshuffle the starting node to be at the front of the list. And then if we refactor that into its own function called sort starting, or I guess it's not really a sort, it's set starting node to beginning of list, which is quite the function name. If we do that, and if we do that every time we save, and every time we save the node template, and every time we save the data, and honestly, anytime we update, I think that'll make it so starting is always in front. So if we save slash now, and then remove all nodes and load slash, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. It moves that node, basically, and everything shifts accordingly. Because again, the order, it doesn't know what the order is. So of course, if I just load up the template, the first node will be the first node. I would have thought that it would have kept the transform. Oh, I need to hit save node template for this to work, or have a chance at working. Okay, what if I load ability bash? Okay, that's still set up correctly. And then if I load ability shoot, That's set up correctly. But if I load slash, it's now broken. Okay. So if we load bash, and if I hit save template to slash, that should update that template. And then if I save ability data for bash, then clear everything and load. Now starting node is at the front, but it's still into C3. Okay. So now if we go to shoot, clear all, and load shoot, things are kind of busted. But that's because shoot needs to be at the front. So if we just save the ability data, remove all nodes, and then load, it gets set correctly because now it's moved to the front. Same thing should be true for slash now. If we load slash, slash is also working correctly. So we just had to save the template. Oh. The implication of this now, though, is that the starting node must be true for that template as well. So if the template changes, or if you want to reuse this template when have, say, the starting node start here, for example, it'd have to be a different template. Yeah. Okay, so we can't fix it here. In fact, we should probably undo most of that logic, aka all of it. Save the template out again. I'm not entirely sure why this is working the way that it is. Load the template, load slash, load bash. I guess now that I've sorted it, it's going to remain sorted and there's no way to change that. That's fine. Okay. Okay, sure. I'm... Okay, that's what I'm expecting. Okay, now it's busted. Cool. All right, I see. It's fine. So... Yeah, if I ever... Okay, sorry, I can't articulate this, but like if I was to try, basically I regenerated the template from scratch and then resaved it out as /simple or starting. This should probably have a different name anyways, but when we do that, it resets the node indices again so that everything goes back to the way it should be, aka they're created in the order sequentially. And then when we load shoot, now things are out of order. And we have to readjust. So let's just fix it back up again. So this becomes unlock shoot. So this becomes this. This shouldn't be too hard to fix. This becomes a stat node for defense. Increasing by 1. This one becomes a stat node for attack, increasing by 2. And this becomes the starting node. Okay. And we're going to just have to fix each of these. And then we're back to square one, where I'm still not entirely sure how to make it so that it will start with the first node, or the starting node. Okay, that one's fixed. And then this will be last one. So this becomes attack 2. Stat node defense 1. And starting node. Okay, so we've refixed the data back up again. It's worth a try, but that's not going to work. So then let's go take a look over here then and see if we can find a way via the data loading. Maybe we can do something here. So we come down to skills. Here. And we take a look at the node menu. This is going to take an ability spec and a unit. It's going to create a new one, giving it a node data. And this comes from the nodes of that ability. Does that node have all the information in it about the transform and everything else? It looks like it does. So So this final version has everything included, all packaged into one by the time it gets to this menu. Yeah, so realistically here we could resort things and make it so that the first button we add is the starting one. So I guess this would be okay. So same idea, but done here. So we're gonna loop through all the nodes. If nodes I dot type, ability node type equals node dot starting type or starting node, then we will do the same thing. In fact, I didn't delete that, did I, from in here? I did not. So we want to do this logic. Oh, we've been listening to Tiny Trials for a long time. Oh no, we changed the resolution. What was I at? It was zoomed in a fair amount, right? Was it this? Was it 113 zoom? I'll have to figure that out later. So... we want to have a starting node. We want to set this value to whatever I is. And then afterwards, we want to go through that node list. This will come out to a node. And then nodes, remove at that node, and then node insert that node. Okay. Let's give this a shot. This might rearrange it so that the first node selected in a grid is the starting one without having to worry about all of the matching list nonsense. It's not a bad system, it's just, it inherently implies like that things are identical, and most of the time it should be. We're really coming up with a very specific situation where it's not. But in some regards, I feel like I should have thought of speed up the game. I should have thought of the starting node being the selecting node a while ago. I really feel like I must have just been hard coding it, like actually modifying it to be index 0 through some sort of data manipulation. But I remember it being a pain, so I think this is still better. Yeah, okay, so now we start on the starting node. Oh, but it breaks everything. Oh, it breaks everything super hard. Because now the indices are all messed up for our controls. We're just going back and forth between these two. So this is left goes to bash, up, down, down goes to strength, and doesn't go anywhere else. So I can only hit left and down. Yeah, so this completely broke all the indice stuff. Now, was that me messing around with the node stuff, or was that to do with adding that inserting starting node? If it is to do with modifying it, then I think it just is a matter of like the lists needing to be in alignment is just not great. We're gonna speed up again. Okay, skipping through a lot of the tutorial stuff. Coming back to the Goddess Realm. Yeah, so changing the order in which we generate the buttons completely breaks the system. I guess that makes sense because there's some sort of like populate logic that has to happen inside of here for navigation. And the ordering of how it wants to create those indices is based off of how it was originally created here. So it's going to make button 0, and it's then going to be like, okay, from button 0, I'm going to be able to go down to indice 3, and then it's going to make this button, and it's going to be like, okay, from this location, I'm going to be able to go down to indice 5 or right to indice 2. And so if we move the order in which we load these, that changes the order they are in the list, which breaks everything. So if we take a look at the menu graph, when it's trying to figure out the up, down, left, right nodes, navigation, get valid button, yeah, it's getting the button by its indice list. Yeah, so the values have to remain the same even when we get to the game part. Okay. Last thing I can think to do is we know the menu has an update selection button. So after we init the menu and we refresh the components, could we do a update selection and just update it to the starting node? That way all the main information remains the same, everything's in sync. This one's a game object. This is a list of nodes. Okay. So set starting node to null. If we find a node that has the type starting node, we set the starting node here, and then we're going to update our selection. Speed the game up. Get through the initial cutscenes. Debug back to the Goddess Realm. Broke. Interesting. So it does expect that the game object I give it is the one that has the button on it. Which is going to be this one. Perfect. One more time. It's possible that, like, the system is fine and I was just tackling all of this from the wrong location all along. Slow the game down again. Other than errors about trying to create too many sound effects because we're going too fast, it doesn't look like there's any errors, but we definitely didn't start on the starting node. So then update selection isn't working either. Such a small thing to try and fix. But it's just been so long since I've touched any of this stuff that it just feels pretty difficult. So deselect everything. Selection. It had real values. It's just a node button. We don't know what this is. If we go transform parent. Parent? Starting node. Okay, so this is the starting node, so we should be setting it to select. On select. So we are setting it to selection. Oh, but we got back here again. Ah, interesting. As part of opening the node screen, we are setting the selection to null, thus updating it to the first one in the menu again. But a moment later, I think we will call... No, we called new screen open just before that. I think we want to override the update selection. And instead of updating in this case, maybe we just let it be. That might cause weird bugs in and of itself. Why is this so tricky? There's got to be a better spot for me to be able to control this information. But it feels like at every turn the system is just trying to reset it to the first object in the list. And we can't change the first object in the list, otherwise that changes the indice order. And if we change the indice order, then the whole node grid skill tree system breaks. Okay, so we're grabbing the selection, Selection is null from update screen. Okay. Okay, updating it with the starting node. Okay, that worked. Holy smokes. Well, we definitely learned a lot about the menu system for the first time in forever. So I'm still not pleased with overriding update selection, because it does feel like this is something that should be used to update our selection. Like, it seems like a perfectly reasonable thing that we should have implemented for our screens. And like, a lot of screens do update it. For unknown reasons. I guess this one's updating it this way to set it to the transition to have no selected objects, so if we're transitioning we get rid of everything. I suppose that makes sense. Let's find all references. Maybe it's not a big deal if we're overriding this to do nothing. So by default, iScreen grabs the menu if it exists and updates it with whatever selection you gave it for that screen. So you're saying, screen, update your menu. This is just setting it to null. This is for the item selection stuff, which has to do a bit of extra logic. Sure. This is us setting it to nothing in here. iScreen doing whatever iScreen wants. Setting it to null, setting it to null. So it seems like the more common thing for us to do when we override update selection is to make it so that we just like set the event system select object to null when we update, ignoring whatever was passed in, for certain screens anyways. These are likely screens that don't have a menu, is probably what's going on here. Okay. And the primary places this is called is with null in a couple of spots here inside of the skill screen. Inside of the item screen, as part of the action system, we get the first menu object. This is to do with the Heir of Embers menu system. That makes sense. We call it null here as part of the screen controller, which I don't entirely know why we're doing this. I assume it's part of the situation where we are seeing with like the HUD, where we want to just like get rid of any selection when we open that screen, but it's weird to me that we do it as part of updating every screen. That seems a bit odd. And then here we update the screen selection with the last selection that screen had open, which seems fair enough to me. This is part of the popping of a screen, so we're moving it off the stack. This is a weird piece of code. Wait, does this explain it? We need to open the new screen first, as it needs to change the selection, and we don't want to close the old screen and remove its callback listener until it closes. I bet you, so I built the screen system in such a way that if you push AAA while opening up a screen, it will go like 4 screens deep into whatever you were selecting, even if that screen hasn't fully opened yet. So even if it's doing a bunch of animations and sliding and scaling or whatever you want to do for all the UI, the input is auto pushed immediately. So you could go in and like equip an item faster than you can even get to that screen if you know all of the inputs. I bet you this update selection is here because it was too slow in some screens. Like the screens weren't getting fully opened and not everything was set up correctly fast enough in order for us to know what the next thing was selected. And so I made a call to be like, hey, whenever we open a new menu, we should update the selection. No, that still doesn't make sense because this is setting it to null. And we know that by default what this is really doing is where's the main spot again? If we go to base, it's setting that game object. So if we set it with, oh, but we know, right. But if it's null, then it sets it to the first one. Right. So, okay. So that still might be valid. So the screen controller is sending in null, but the menu system, if it finds a selection of null, tries to get the first object in the list instead. So yeah, this is probably to do with the fact that when I open a new screen, I make sure to update the selection of that menu immediately. But even that feels weird because we know from debugging just now that we got to the menu before we got to this. This is fine. This is fine, but it's not great. And I feel like this whole like adventure through the screen system to check on this is really just highlighting to me that like there is a fundamental issue with the menus, specifically this menu graph, because I really want to override get first, but I have no idea what the actual first should be. Because this can get a graph node, but a graph node won't know which indice is the starting one. Huh. This is the implementation. This is for updating the selection. This is for a couple of very specific screens that want to update to the first, which we now know really could just be null and it would do the same thing. Button list first. Come on, Unity. Compile. I can't just override it. Is this all I'm doing wrong? Am I just not getting the mindset right? Is the main problem I'm not thinking about it in terms of inheritance the way that it was built? So if we know we have a list of buttons, if we take a look at this list, each one of these in this list is going to be one of these objects. We know that it's parent. We'll have a node data holder. It's possible to create my own custom node graph menu, inheriting from the generic menu graph. And then from there, this thing can override get first and return not the first button in the list, but a custom one that I choose. The problem will be is that these things are one level down from where we want to be. So if we go button, game object, oh, I guess we could just do, what is this list actually? Yeah, it's a list of buttons. So we will need to loop through them like this. What makes this system awkward is that even if we do get a component in parent, the best we can hope for is the data-driven parent controller component of node. Yeah, it should be of type node. Did I get the wrong one? What version of Node is this? Should be using infinite retries. Oh, right. We need to do stored data first. Then we can get its type. I built a super flexible system. The problem is if I don't remember how the flexible system works, it's just more work. Okay, we're going to make sure we removed all the other code we added. We shouldn't need this anymore. Shouldn't need this. Shouldn't need any of this. And we should still see the first node that we select be our starting node, just based off of that new, more customized menu for the graph. Alright, speed the game up, select slash, speed it up again, go through the intro cutscenes, go through the initial dialogue here, go forward. We have no selection. Return to normal speed. Yeah, now we have no selection. Well, it did something. Well, is it at least trying to do something good? Let's find out. I wasn't seeing any errors beyond the sound effects issue, right? Yeah, sound effects are the only problems here. Put a breakpoint in. Let's go back up a level. This is fine. Go back in. Oh. Right. So it's not going to auto-select unless we go into here and also remove this override so that selections actually choose the first thing. So now it should automatically choose a selection of null, which should choose the first one. Okay. We're gonna debug, delete all breakpoints for the time being, speed the game up. Yeah, that works. Okay. I'm really happy with that, actually. It's a bit weird. Return back to normal speed. But, like, once I understood how the system worked again, that makes a ton of sense. We've just never had to customize a menu before, but I probably should have done this a long time ago. So we made a generic system in which this handles all of the like information about adding buttons and all the other information, but it's generic in that this is a simple version of a menu graph and it shouldn't know anything about our actual skill tree. But here at this moment, we do want to know which node is our starting node, and we want to make that the get first option if we can. And so anytime we call get first, which isn't a lot, we're just going to loop through the buttons. We're going to get the data parent in the data driven parent that has the type node in the components in parent, which should be one level up. We will get the stored data from that, check its type. If it's starting node, we will return this button dot game object as the first button. Otherwise, if we fail to find it, we will just return the first one. So if this node grid doesn't have a starting node, it'll just give you the first one. And that seems like such a simple thing. It's like just overriding an existing class and just overriding one function. And I get the behavior that took me, I don't even know, like an hour of digging around through our node loading system, through our menu system, through our screen systems, when in reality all I had to do was make one class and override one function, and it just works. And so it becomes this thing where it's like, is that bad then? Is this a bad front end system? And I still go with no, because I think the system itself is flexible. Like the ability to just do what I did makes this so a new menu with a new setup is relatively easy to program. The problem is it is not easy to parse if you haven't worked with it recently. And because I haven't touched any menu code this deeply, because we've been so deep in like building systems and building features and getting all of these things up and running and adding polish, that like I just didn't remember how to build this, and I didn't have the right mindset anymore for how I had constructed these to work. But now that I've re-looked at it, I might be able to come to that same conclusion more quickly, but it's also very possible that I couldn't. Like, maybe it's just a problem with, like, I just need to be immersed in my own front-end system more, and it'll take time, but this is also not my full-time job. It's only a hobby, and although we have 4 weeks of vacation time to work on this, I'll probably forget about that methodology at some point in the future again. Maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. It's an interesting problem. It's definitely something I'm going to take forward with me, both design and coding wise, is this idea that I spent so long building the system to be so flexible that I could do really powerful stuff, but then just leaving it and going elsewhere for a time, I forget so much of it that now it isn't powerful anymore. It's actually a hindrance. I don't know. I'm going to have to think on that for a lot longer, because I still think it's good, but it's not good if you don't know how to use it. And if it's complicated, then you're going to have a harder time coming back and figuring out how to use it. I don't know. All right. Anyways, moving right along. We've got a little bit of time left here in this stream. Not a lot, like 5 minutes, but we'll see if we can get the other 2 skills up and running. So let's go into... God, I don't even know where to go back to. We were setting up the initial prefab for this, and we named that slash. So if we copy this and make a new one called bash, and copy that and make a new one called shoot, and then maybe we create a new folder in here called tier 1. These are like your starting abilities, and just to have them sorted at least a little bit, we will put them in here so that they're together. And then copying this naming convention here, we'll add the addressable for shoot, and then we will also add the addressable for bash. Okay. Last thing I want to do before I forget is if we come into here and we look at its typing, this will be low, which should be an A attack. This will be mid, which will be a B attack. And this will be high, which will be a Y attack. I think I'm going to rename those. I may even just rename them to their inputs, because that might be clearer. Okay, so now we've generated each of these, and technically it has a design data, and technically we've built the node data for it already. So the only other thing we'd need to do is go into starting screen. No? Starting? There it is. If we change this to bash, and this to shoot, I think that might just work. So we should be able to choose one of the other ones. We should get that ability. We should be able to go through all the tutorial stuff, get to the menu, and see that ability show up in game. So we'll choose Bash. We'll speed the game up. We'll debug into the Goddess Realm. We'll run through the intro cutscene. We'll run through the on the ground cutscene. We'll debug back to the Goddess Realm. And then Bash appears here, and we can tell that this is good. Yeah, so shoot and slash are the other ones you can unlock here, and this eventually unlocks Bash V2. Okay. Let's do shoot. And then I think we will have stubbed in at least the initial skill grids, data, and information for the 3 starting abilities. Shoot. Debug. Speed the game up. Run through the initial stuff. I really need to make a config file or something that allows me to like set certain flags like the tutorial to being done so that we don't have to run through this like this. Ooh, shoot unlocks slash and shoot. That seems wrong. And unlocks Bash V2. Interesting. So shoot has the wrong data associated with it. Let's go into the skill screen, see if we can fix that. It's going to be down in here in front end stuff. Skill. Loader. Shoot. Loadability. Yeah, I think we may have saved over the wrong one at some point. So this should unlock Bash, I think. And this should be unlocking Shoot V2. And then we can save over that data. And just to confirm, let's remove all. Let's load shoot. Unlock Bash slash shoot V2. Bash, load data. Shoot slash Bash V2. And slash load data. Bash, shoot, and slash V2. And the stats will rearrange and do stuff with, and even try out different templates for the layout. But that should be better, and we will just test that real quick. So one more time. I think that's going to line up perfectly with the end of the stream. I really thought we'd get through more of this, but honestly, I think an hour wasn't even just on getting the ability set up. It was just running through a real simple polish of wanting to have the grid start on the starting node. But that proved to be pretty difficult. I think tomorrow we'll get to some of these other things. Okay, let's see what Unity's got up its sleeve. So we'll go shoot again. Debug ends and the run. Run through all this. Skip. Debug back here. And then slow things down. Bash slash shoot V2. So it is now loading the correct grid. Okay. Holy smokes. So fixed starting node in grids. It's like most of what the stream was. And realistically, relearn menus. Systems. Yeah. We are late in the night, especially for some folks. I imagine it's probably at the midnight hour. Tomorrow, we will be back with another 3 to 5 stream, and then another 7 to 9 stream. I doubt we're going to be tackling building all the maps. I don't think we're there with some of the art integration, We're still figuring out some of that, so it's more likely that we'll probably do some amount of this, as well as just continuing on bugs and polish in general. It's probably a better breakdown of what we'll be doing tomorrow. I feel like we kind of did a good kind of pass on design the skill trees, but I think we could do better. And I might try and do... There's one thing I want to do with the balance pass. I don't know. The balance pass is tricky because I still need to fix something with the formulas, and I don't really want to do it on camera because it's going to be a lot of number tweaking. But essentially, when we modify our values here for our starting attack, we do 10 attack, 10 defense with 10 power. We have like a final damage here around 16, 17, 18, depending on the 10% variance. But if I give the player one more defense, it doesn't really do anything. It like has a 0.33 reduction, and some of these fields are broken, but I want to see if I can find a way to make defense more valuable as we get higher into like say 75 attack and say higher power abilities like even 40, I would think. And then if we go from a defense of 11 to a defense of 12, we start to see like 60 damage decreases. So early on, defense just doesn't have an impact. But even when we get to like something like say 70 and then go 71, I imagine, yeah, it's like a 26 point decrease. But maybe when we're doing this much damage, maybe 20 just isn't enough. So I think that like defense has value, but it just doesn't feel like it's strong enough right now. And we could balance that by making it so you unlock like defense in chunks of 5, so that those nodes that are less exciting you get more of each time you get one of those. But I'd like to see if I can tweak this formula a little bit more, but I don't really want to do that on camera. But before we can do the balance pass, I kind of need to figure out what I want to do with the damage formula in terms of defense to make it feel more impactful. I think I'm out of things to ramble about, so without any further ado, I will see folks tomorrow at 3 PST. Check the schedule on the Twitch page if you're curious there, or the Discord. For now, though, this is going to be Tolhi signing out. Later, folks.